UFC 308 just finished, and it's time for me to give my recap of the entire card. I'm not in a great mood right now because Max Holloway just got KO'd. And even though I got my main event prediction right, I'd said all along that the MMA gods are too cruel to give Holloway the win, and always these cocky, brash up-and-comers, they always beat the proven fan favorite veteran in these situations. It just felt like Holloway was going to lose the whole time, and I knew there was a chance of him getting knocked out, but seeing it happen was so much worse than I expected, and we're going to get into it. Amazing card. Honestly, these Abu Dhabi cards usually don't deliver. This one actually over-delivered. This card was better than I expected, even though it was stacked on paper, but let's get into it. Ilia Topuria just knocked out Max Holloway. I know a lot of you guys are feeling pretty depressed right now, because I definitely am. It just doesn't feel right seeing a guy like Holloway just go out like that, man. Ilia Topuria is the most built different featherweight the world has ever seen. You know, Volk used to be that guy. Speaking of Volk, listen, I'm a big Volkanovski fan. Get out of the cage. And I'm not just saying that because I know he's going to lose if they have a rematch, but like, I just thought it was a little bit cringy. Ilia Topuria just knocked out Max Holloway, and we're bringing in the guy for this big face-off that Ilia knocked out in his fight before. Are you kidding me? Because nothing says scary and intimidating like the guy that just got KO'd twice in a row. I think this kind of proves that Ilia Topuria knocking out Volk, even though Volk turned around a little bit too quickly after the Makhachev KO, I think this proves that that wasn't just because Volk was compromised. Ilia KOing Volk was because of the next level, never before seen, power. He is the featherweight Gervonta Davis. He is the UFC's Gervonta Davis. In fact, he's more built different than Gervonta Davis. Ilia Topuria, I'm never picking against Ilia Topuria ever. Unless he moves up to welterweight, I'm not picking against him. He just knocked out Max Holloway. And Holloway looked really good. And I don't want to hear nothing about Holloway was compromised because of the weight cut, man. This is his division. This is Max's division. Okay, we knew the weight cut was going to be difficult. That was a freaking smudge of the reason why. This fight was such a roller coaster. Let's get into the fight. This fight was a roller coaster because Max Holloway went out there first round. He was winning the fight. It kind of looks similar to the Volkanovski fight, where Volkanovski was piecing him up early. Ilia was doing his thing. He was landing some right hands, but it looked like, all right, Max Holloway just won the first round, and just like when Volkanovski won the first round, I guess Ilia Topuria is in some trouble. Second round, Ilia Topuria starts finding his range. He starts making his reads. That's why I compare him to Gervonta Davis, because he's a slow starter. And then in the third round, he goes after Max Holloway, lands a right hand, rocks Holloway, and I shit my pants watching that live. I started yelling, no, 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 no. And he KOs Max with a left hook. Wasn't even the right hook. His most powerful punch, it was the left hook. It was surreal seeing Max Holloway go down. One of the saddest things I've ever seen. Thank goodness he didn't go out cold like Volk did. Holloway, that was a KO, but he didn't go out cold either way. Ilia Topuria becomes the first man to KO Max, and normally, I am usually more impressed with like dominant decisions, but if you're KOing Max Holloway, and at least, you know, it's not like Ilia just had no success and then he KO'd him. He was having success. He was doing pretty well. I think he won the second round. I think it's more impressive knocking out Holloway than beating him by decision. Okay, that's, in my opinion, the craziest win anyone has ever had over Max. And now he's beaten Volk, the featherweight GOAT. He's beaten Max Holloway, who in my opinion is the second best featherweight of all time. Please, I don't want to hear anyone saying anything about Aldo. I know Aldo's one of the GOATs, but he has a bunch of bantamweight wins as well. But as far as featherweight goes, Max passed him a while ago. But either way, Ilia Topuria just beat Max Holloway, who is coming off of 2 KO wins. Prime Max, I don't want anyone to be talking about he was compromised, not his division. Dude, this is his division. He shouldn't have moved down, in my opinion, but you know what? This was a legendary fight. I'm happy he did. And he beat Volkanovski. He's a top 10 fighter of all time, and I don't want to hear anything about it. Ilia Topuria is a top 10 fighter of all time. And what is the argument against that? Because I already know people are going to be saying, slow your roll, man. He beat Volkanovski, who was compromised, and beat a fucking washed up Max. Stop. Max looked better than I expected. I thought he was going to have more trouble landing boxing combinations on the shorter man Ilia Topuria because he struggled with shorter opponents. But he didn't have trouble with it at all. He actually looked like a pretty good version of himself. We saw the takedown in the first round. Ilia Topuria kind of surprised me with how early he went for that takedown. Picked Max up, slammed him down, and Max got right back up to his feet. All of Max's opponents talk about how strong he is and how hard he is to keep down, and that was proven. And so Ilia Topuria forced to stand with Max Holloway, the volume king, and knocks him the fuck out, which, again, nobody's ever done it. It was surreal to see it. Very depressing, very sad. He's now knocked out two of my favorite fighters back-to-back. And as I said, dude, you know what? I'd be lying if I told you guys that I was really, really happy and hyped. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to get over this, but it's kind of hard to be so happy when Ilia Topuria is beating your favorite fighters, okay? Like, I know this guy's a megastar. I know he's GOAT material already. Not the GOAT, but I think he's clearly got potential to become the GOAT. He's already got a head start because of how good these wins are. But again, he's just knocked out Max Holloway. That's like the most devastating way to see Holloway lose if he's one of your favorite fighters. And before that, KOing Volk. And then Volk's getting in the cage and, dude, you saw, oh my goodness. Diego Lopez and Volkanovski, they panned over to Volkanovski before he got in the cage, and Diego Lopez. Volk looked a little bit worried. They then shifted the camera to Diego Lopez, and Diego was like, bro, fuck that. I don't want any piece of this guy. And he noticed the camera was on him, and he shifted his face immediately because he knew he wasn't looking, you know, super confident in that moment. Volkanovski, I guarantee it, okay? I know Volk's confident. I know that you know, these GOATs have like this next level of confidence and self-belief and all that, but you just know, after seeing that, you know, Volkanovski was talking a lot about how Ilia Topuria can always land that lucky punch and, you know, he's got a puncher's chance, but I've tried to crack Max and you know, Volkanovski seems to have been sort of, in my opinion, overlooking Ilia's, or sort of downplaying him rather, going into this Holloway fight. And now he's going in there with a guy that just knocked out Max Holloway, the granite chin, and he already got knocked out by Ilia Topuria. I just know Volkanovski's a little bit worried now. And I don't want to see that fight. I know Volkanovski deserves it. I know Ilia Topuria was super respectful because in defeat, this guy's very respectful. But I honestly thought it was cringy that, as I said, Volkanovski's getting in the cage. It's like, dude, you got knocked out by this guy, and he just had an even crazier win over Max Holloway, who, again, this is one of the best KOs in UFC history because Max has never been KO'd before, and he's known for being the toughest guy in UFC history. And here comes Volk, pillow punch Volk. Like, he's, you know, he's my favorite fighter, but still, I thought that was a little bit cringy. Like, can we get someone a little bit scarier? It's like, it basically was something along the lines of bringing in like a sparring partner that you KO'd on your first ever training session, and now you're a UFC champion. Yeah, your next opponent's going to be that sparring partner you KO'd, that bum in the gym that you KO'd back in the day. Like, I know that that's not actually how it is, but it really did feel like a pathetic opponent to put in there with Ilia Topuria, and I know you guys agree with me. And I really do think it's a mistake for Volkanovski to go in there. How the heck are you going to beat this guy? Okay, and this is the thing. We talk about Holloway's toughness. Ilia Topuria just doesn't wear damage. Like, yeah, he gets his face bruised up a little bit. But Holloway was stomping on his knee and jabbing him up and hitting him with some great combinations, some really good right hands. You know, right hands that were even rocking Rufus, Justin Gaethje. And we saw Volkanovski land some gnarly punches on Ilia, stopping him in his tracks. Ilia Topuria just doesn't get rocked. I know he got rocked back in the day by Jai Herbert. I never see this guy get rocked. He eats like the cleanest punches like they're nothing. How is Volkanovski going to beat this guy? It's not going to happen. You have to survive 5 rounds. In order to beat Ilia Topuria, you have to survive Ilia Topuria. And I just don't know if anyone's capable of doing that, especially because he has the grappling. I mean, the only opponent that in any way is interesting to me right now for a guy like Ilia Topuria, even though I do want to see him continue to fight at featherweight, is Islam Makhachev. And that's just because Islam is bigger than him, has a huge size advantage, and is, in his own right, becoming one of the GOATs. And that would be a legendary fight. But I think Ilia KOs him too. I know people are going to say, Islam going to humble this guy, brother. No, the fuck he's not. Okay? As long as Islam doesn't land his shin directly on Ilia Topuria's chin, he's not easily beating him. It's going to be the toughest fight of his entire life. Islam Makhachev is hittable. If Dustin Poirier, who we saw fight Max, he had success against Max and he had success against Islam, Ilia Topuria is knocking Islam out if he's landing these gnarly punches on him. Nobody can survive this dude's power punches. He's built different. He's a freak. And he's going to beat Islam, who's one of my favorite fighters too. You know, it's weird because like Ilia is beating everybody, but he's beating my favorite fighters. So I can't be that happy about these wins. I was right. You know, Ilia Topuria is not a crazy volume guy. I feel like he's always going to be this KO guy, but it's just a matter of time. That's really how it feels, especially now. But I do have to say that it did catch me by surprise because, again, it did seem like Max had survived the first 2 rounds and done really well. And Ilia still rocks him, man. And it's just... he's got the equalizer at 145 against the best fighters ever. He's the top 10 fighter of all time. And if you don't agree with that, dude, his resume right now, Max and Volk alone, he beat 2 top 10 all-time fighters. What does that say about him? Oh, also, he has like 7 other wins in the UFC, undefeated. I don't care if this guy doesn't have fucking 5 title defenses. He's the top 10 fighter of all time. And if he goes out there and beats Volkanovski again, that's still a decent win. It's not going to be as good as him beating him the first time. I know that people say the first time was compromised Volk. No, it wasn't. Yes, it kind of was, but it doesn't matter because the freaking power was there anyway. Compromise or not, he's getting KO'd. Dude, I hate this. This sucks. This sucks, bro. Holloway got KO'd. I don't think his career is over, but man, this stinks so much. You know, I really wanted Holloway to go out there and beat this dude's ass, but he's too OP. He's too OP. Evloev is getting smoked. Aljo's getting smoked. Volk is getting smoked. If there's any Volkanovski fan, you know, I actually think I saw a comment, someone saying, actually, you know, Volkanovski can do pretty well. He was pretty compromised from the first fight. Like, just stop. He's getting knocked out. It's going to be worse than the first time. It's going to be humiliating. It's going to be in Australia. That's why Ilia Topuria is actually happy to fight Volk. Because Ilia knows that, dude, get out of the cage, bro. I already knocked you out, and I just knocked out Max Holloway. Fair enough, if I beat him by decision, maybe we can make that happen. But I just knocked him out. I think we're past that. But because he knows Volk isn't a threat at all. You know, it's literally like... It's like Tom Aspinall. Let's say Tom Aspinall, back in the day, he wasn't as big as he is right now. I'm sure he used to spar some skinny guys in the gym, and then he had a growth spurt, and now he's the heavyweight champ. It's like bringing in one of Tom Aspinall's former training partners who stopped training 5 years ago, and him and Tom Aspinall having a face-off in the cage. That's honestly how it felt. That's why Ilia Topuria is down to fight him. All Ilia has to do is do one sauna session, lose some water weight, just, you know, go on a quick weight cut, lose some water weight, hop in there in Australia, no training camp, you'll knock him out. Volk just doesn't have that KO power. You know, that's the issue. And with Max, it's like not even the granite chin and the best volume ever could save him. Ilia Topuria, it's a matter of time before he knocks you the fuck out. It's over for everybody. Islam Makhachev, what's he going to do? Take him down and do nothing with it. Ilia's getting right back up. Although he's been held down before, there still are some questions, but still. Islam Makhachev, he did knock out Volkanovski the first time. And listen, I know he can KO people, but my point is, he's not this crazy power puncher. He is someone that's hittable. Yes, he's very good. Yes, he's got good fight IQ. Ilia's got the featherweight skill, and it's just a matter of time. Will Islam beat him? That's not the question. Will it go 5 rounds is the real question. I don't think it does. I think it's a matter of time before this guy lands on someone's chin. So Ilia Topuria is the Thanos of the lighter weight class division. He is the, I guess, best KO artist in the UFC. I know people are going to be upset because they're going to be talking about Alex Pereira, but Alex is a great fighter. But Ilia Topuria is the true KO artist. You know, he's really knocking people out. He's really got that next level power. I've seen Alex Pereira land a couple left hooks here and there. Ilia Topuria is knocking out Max Holloway. Sleeping Volk, flatlining Volk. They're similar. There's no need to compare, but, you know, different weight classes. Lighter weight class, Thanos. Heavier weight class, Thanos. How many more wins does this guy need to become the GOAT of the sport? I know people are going to be so furious at me bringing that up. It's true. He just beat Max Holloway on a 2-fight win streak, who's a top 10 fighter of all time, and Volkanovski, and he's going to fucking beat Volk again. It's already happened. It happened already. He beat Volk twice. Okay? So what do you do with that? He's a freaking top 10 fighter ever. And if he goes up and beats Islam, he's the GOAT. Okay? He's the GOAT. John Jones' win over Anthony Smith isn't going to save him then. All right? This guy, it's unbelievable. Max was doing so well, but, you know, it is what it is. Kind of sucks to see it, to be honest. Like, you know, I got my pick right. I kind of knew it was going to happen. I was dreading this day for a reason. And I really hope Max is able to retain some of that toughness. I think he will. It's just that, how do you beat this guy? Ilia Topuria just beat the two best strikers in UFC history, arguably. The two best volume strikers ever. The two guys that are known for overwhelming people. Max and Volk. Those are the guys that are going to, if Ilia doesn't knock him out early, that's going to be problems. Well, still KOs him. That's like, who's going to stop this guy? You have to put his lights out. Because 5 rounds, 25 minutes with Ilia Topuria, you're getting KO'd eventually. And he's got insane grappling. So Islam Makhachev is going to have to smudge this guy into the canvas. Otherwise, he's screwed. Unfortunately, even though that is the best fight in the UFC right now, Ilia versus Islam, and I'd love to see the buildup because that would be so epic. The confidence that both of those guys have, you know, Islam with his cheeky smile and, you know, he's a little bit of a smart aleck, and Ilia Topuria, you know, he's always flapping his gums and he's always talking shit. I'd love to see that buildup. I'd love to see Makhachev smirking in Ilia's face and Ilia Topuria, you know, just confidently telling Makhachev he's going to KO him. That would be the best fight. Unfortunately, we're probably going to get Armen Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev next. And after that, Islam's going to want to move up. And it's just like, oh, we have to get Armen. And Ilia's got to fight Volk, who's got to do that. You know what? Screw that. Can we just jump the line and do Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev? Because if we don't make that fight soon, we will never get it. That's the big issue. Before I get on to the next fight, if we don't make that fight soon, we will never get it because Makhachev would have had 4 lightweight title defenses. That would be the record. And then he's going to say, I've earned it. I'm going to go up. And Ilia Topuria, when Makhachev beats Armen Tsarukyan, is going to be coming off of a win over Volk, and now it's going to be there's someone else, right? But I think that's the biggest fight to make. And I need to see that because whoever wins that is going to be the GOAT of the sport. That could literally decide the GOAT of the sport. If Ilia Topuria moves up a weight class, after beating Volk and Max, 2 top 10 all-time fighters, and he beats a third, if you beat 3 top 10 all-time fighters, especially if he beats Volk again, you're the GOAT of the sport, okay? You can give me 10 light heavyweight dinosaur wins. That doesn't match up, not even for a second, against 3 lighter weight class wins against 3 top 10 fighters of all time. Ilia would be the GOAT. And we already saw what, you know, Islam did to Volk. Twice. He's already beaten Dustin. He's beaten Armen, or he's going to beat Armen. He's beaten Charles. If he beats Ilia Topuria, he's the GOAT of the sport too. So that's why we need to make that fight. All right? I don't want to hear any, he's running from Evlev or he's running from Aljo. Stop. We have to call for that fight. That's a fight that is necessary. Let's get on to the next one. Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. This was the longest first round I've ever seen in my entire life, and it didn't even go the full distance of the first round, but I was rooting for Robert Whittaker. I picked Robert Whittaker to win this fight, and those seconds were going by so unbelievably slow, all right? And Whittaker did a really good job defending in the first minute and a half, and I was thinking to myself, oh, here we go, he's getting up, he's getting up. Khamzat takes him down again, and Whittaker gets up, here, he's getting up. Khamzat takes him down again. And I'm literally like pacing back and forth, and I'm just hoping that we're going to get there. And the seconds are just ticking by slower than ever. And all of a sudden, Khamzat Chimaev gets Whittaker in a bad position. I see Whittaker tap, and I think maybe I missed something. I must have missed something because I just see him tapping out of nowhere. It turns out that Whittaker dislocated his jaw when Khamzat Chimaev locked in that neck crank. I think it was before he started really cranking on, he was locking it in, and that's when Whittaker's jaw was being dislocated. If you saw Whittaker's face after the fact, it definitely looked to be like, you know, bloated or inflamed. And so unfortunate for Robert Whittaker, man. So unfortunate. Khamzat Chimaev gets his aura back with this win. Even though it's one of those weird ones where you would have liked to see him actually lock in the choke and see Whittaker try to fight through it a little bit. It was just so abrupt, so out of nowhere. Kind of like the Gane versus Jones one, but in a sense even worse. It's an amazing win for Khamzat Chimaev. Going out there and submitting Robert Whittaker, that's incredible. And we unfortunately didn't get to see Whittaker in that second, third, fourth, fifth round. We hardly saw any striking exchanges. But hey, that's kind of what you have to expect from a Khamzat Chimaev first round. And I think everyone that was picking Robert Whittaker kind of knew that the first round is going to suck for him. The first round, he's definitely losing. Because I just know that people are going to be out here saying, Lucas, you're a fucking idiot. You picked this wrong. It's like, dude, but there's always a great chance of Khamzat getting it done in the first round. The way that you pick this fight is Whittaker gonna be able to survive? And if he does, I think he wins the fight. And I just thought maybe he would have been able to survive for another minute. But Khamzat Chimaev, relentless. You know, DC on the commentary was talking about this even before he shot the takedown. And he was saying, you know, people ask Khamzat, are you going to slow things down? Are you going to slow things down? Because things didn't necessarily go your way in the first round with Usman and you slowed down a little bit. In that fight, you kind of gassed out. Are you going to maybe have a more measured approach? And Khamzat says, never, brother. Never. And I think it works for him because for Khamzat Chimaev, he's the guy that overwhelms you. He's the guy that comes out of the gates. He gets a hold of you, and he's got this like freakish type of strength you've never felt before, and he's got this next level jiu-jitsu that nobody in the middleweight division has. There is nobody with this jiu-jitsu in the first round that's that explosive, that's that overwhelming. Nobody does that to people. And Khamzat Chimaev, we thought maybe he was resting on his laurels a little bit. He was getting too cocky. He was living in Dubai. He was having a good time, and he wasn't hungry Khamzat. And, you know, the difference between hungry Khamzat and OG Khamzat is just whether he gets the submission in the first round or doesn't. And sometimes Kamaru Usman, the crafty vet, is able to just survive. And sometimes people aren't able to survive. And Whittaker was not able to survive. He is, in a sense, still like a first-round Francis Ngannou, Tom Aspinall version of a grappler, you know? And the question is, will they give him a title shot? I say, to be honest, are you kidding me, man? Dude, Strickland's in the wings, man. You got to get back in line. No, man, Strickland, bro. Strickland's freaking earned it. Stop fucking over Strickland. You know what I have to say about that? Get out of here, okay? Sean Strickland does not deserve a freaking UFC debut, let alone a title fight compared to Khamzat Chimaev. All right? No, I'm kidding. But, I mean, listen, Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland. Dude, Sean Strickland, you know, great win over Paulo Costa, a little pitter-pat win over Paulo Costa, but I'm pretty sure Khamzat Chimaev is 100% a lock to getting a title shot, and I don't think there should be an argument. Okay, he beat Kamaru Usman, he beat the OG Gerald Meerschaert, and he beat Kevin Lee. Now, he didn't beat Kevin Lee, but he beat Robert Whittaker and Kamaru Usman back-to-back. That's a little bit better than beating Paulo Costa with a snooze fest, okay? And as I said, Strickland, he's the only one that's been getting in his way by waiting out, not fighting, and all this stuff, because I believe that maybe he could have fought Robert Whittaker and they didn't make that fight because he didn't want to fight Robert Whittaker. Khamzat Chimaev fights him instead. Okay, well, the winner of this fight, Whittaker, who's on a crazy win streak, Khamzat Chimaev, who's got all the hype that he's got, of course the winner of this fight is going to get a title shot. That shouldn't be surprising. So it's Khamzat versus DDP. If Khamzat goes out there and submits Dricus du Plessis, then there's GOAT potential on this guy too, because Dricus du Plessis just beat Whittaker, Adesanya, and Strickland. 3 of the best middleweights ever. You go out there and beat him, and DDP is like the built different tank. You know, he does nothing right, but he just still wins every single time. He's got that funky style. If Khamzat goes out there and ragdolls DDP. That is going to be insane. But I ain't going to pick him. I'm picking Dricus du Plessis, but I want to see that fight. I need to see that fight. Because we know Dricus du Plessis' gas tank is ridiculous. His physicality, his strength is ridiculous. I still think Khamzat takes him down in the first. And I still think he's going to out-grapple DDP, but will he get him out of there? I don't know. I think Dricus's funky style is going to be able to save him a little bit. Whereas, Whittaker's doing everything right, and he's fighting the hands. These guys sort of nerd out a little bit. And I just think Dricus du Plessis is just going to flow with it. And he's going to be cool, calm, and collected. I think he's going to beat Khamzat. But, man, we have some good title fights lined up. Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. That is 100,000 times better than Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. I still think Sean Strickland could potentially beat Dricus if they fight again. But, I mean, come on. After this, after seeing Khamzat Chimaev go out there and finish Robert Whittaker in the first round, whereas this is the first time Khamzat has finally finished a truly elite top 5 worthy opponent. Before it was Kevin Holland, it was Gerald Mearshart, it was Li Jingliang. But when he was fighting these, top dogs, Usman, Burns, he wasn't really getting him out of there. He got Whittaker out of there. Fair enough, it was an injury type of situation, but he caused it with the relentless grappling, and injuries are going to happen in fights. Okay, and that's what happened. Khamzat Chimaev just ragdolled Robert Whittaker, bullied him in the first round, and unfortunately, that's it. The good guys lost today in these situations. These good guys are always losing. Unfortunately, this is like the millionth time it's happened. Remember when Charles and Islam fought? Islam wins. Volk, Islam wins. Topuria, Volk, Ilia wins. I don't think I'm ever going to pick the proven fan favorite veteran against the up-and-coming, smirky, trash talkers, cocky. I'll never pick them to win because, the MMA gods always give it to the bad guy. So it is what it is. Amazing win for Khamzat Chimaev. He's just a beast, and I'm happy to see him get back in the win column. And that's just because if he lost, man, Khamzat Chimaev's whole career would have been kind of a bust. But it is what it is. Let's get on to it. My boy Mag versus Rakic. Man, bro. Mag's just different. He's just built different, man. Magomed Ankalaev. I've been telling people the whole time, Ank is really like that. Ank does it to everybody in the gym. He does it to everybody in the gym. Let me just say this. I actually really enjoyed this fight. This was a great fight. And I've seen some people saying on the UFC's page, because I was curious, because I know people don't like Mag, but I was looking at the comments and people were saying, with that type of performance, you'll never get a title shot. Or, things along the lines of, bro's putting everybody to sleep, man. This was a great fight. And Alexander Rakic was the one that was grappling. Early on, Rakic was doing pretty well. I think he did edge out the first round, but it was close. They were striking, and this is light heavyweight. So it's not a Holloway Cater level of output, but they were actually throwing some good output. In the second round, Magomed Ankalaev is throwing tons of output. He's trying to knock out Alexander Rakic. He was trying to take his head off with the left hand that stepped through. Magomed Ankalaev was lighting up Alexander Rakic in the second round. These guys were throwing. Rakic started to kind of go on the back foot a little bit, and I said going into this, I fear that Rakic is going to be too respectful of Magomed, and if he wants to win, he's just got to go out there and bulldoze him. And in the first round, he was super aggressive. He was throwing lots of kicks. He was trying to bulldoze him a little bit. Magomed got that respect, and Rakic coming off of the Yuri Prohaska KO loss, I think he was a little bit wary of taking too much damage, and then we see classic Rakic on the back foot. Unfortunately, Rakic, his volume dropped off, but people are saying Magomed Ankalaev had a shitty performance. Like, fair enough, he didn't knock out Alexander Rakic. Fair enough, compared to Alex Pereira, who had one of the best light heavyweight fights we've ever seen. And, before that, 2 highlight reel KOs. It doesn't look that special, but this was actually a decent fight. And just because he doesn't go out there and land a spinning wheel kick KO doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve a title shot. I thought this was pretty good. Third round, okay, things slowed down a little bit, but Rakic was the one who looked to be clinching. And, second round was fire. These guys were throwing lots of strikes. Magomed Ankalaev was trying to take his head off. He was landing big punches. I thought it was a decent fight. There was nothing boring about this. I've seen a boring fight out of Magomed Ankalaev. I've seen him fight. What's his name? Back in the day, I saw him fight. What was it? Volkan Ozdemir, and I saw him fight Thiago Santos. Those were boring fights. This is not boring. Magomed Ankalaev may be patient, but he is not boring. And you know what? People really dislike this guy so much. And it's kind of crazy because that's just giving him more aura. And it's just making Magomed's fans even stronger, brother. Because, and this is the thing, and you know it's true. Magomed Ankalaev, fair enough, he's not spinning wheel kick KOing people and flying kneeing people, and he's not trash talking. He's not the most entertaining fighter ever. But you know that Poatan fans are low-key, and I'm a Poatan fan too, but you know that the Magomed haters who must be huge Poatan fans are low-key worried because they don't want this guy to be... Fair enough. I think Poatan's a much better champion. Fair enough, I get it. But they're dismissing him so much. Haha, let's give this guy Alexander Rakic. Magomed's performance sucked. Give him Johnny Walker again. Give him Walker. Dude, stop. Okay? He just beat Rakic. He should have beaten Blachowicz. He beat Johnny Walker. This guy hasn't been beaten since like the 90s, okay? And just because he doesn't get a flying knee KO doesn't mean that he should not be getting a title shot. Give this man a title fight. Because if you really don't think he's any match, why are you worried? I don't think he beats Alex Pereira. You know, sorry, Magomed. I know we're friends. He's going to kick my ass. Magomed's, you know, I'm going to have to be careful around this guy in training. But to be honest, I think Alex Pereira KOs him. And things are, you know, I understand. I'm keeping it real. Sorry, Magomed, but I think Alex KOs him. But why are people worried? I want to see this fight. Magomed's not the wrestler. He's not the guy that hugs on to people. He's the guy that goes in there and tries to outstrike people. And that straight left hand that he's throwing, that's been a problem for Pereira. Magomed Ankalaev fights out of southpaw. Israel Adesanya KO'd him from the southpaw stance. Adesanya was tagging him from the southpaw stance. Roundtree was doing pretty well from the southpaw stance. There's always a chance, okay? And, you know, I know people always bring up MMA math, but listen, Magomed Ankalaev going to a decision with Alexander Rakic, it's not the best look in the world. I think he really did need that big win, and I was kind of predicting if he wasn't going to KO Rakic, people were going to be shitting on him. This was a better fight than I expected, to be honest, even though I called a KO, which would have been the best for him, but just because he's going to decisions with Rakic doesn't mean he can't KO Pereira. He's a light heavyweight who's got a shitload of power. One punch can change a fight, and I want to see that fight. And I really... You know, I feel fair enough. I understand why people are making jokes like give him Rakic again, or they're saying things along the line of give him Walker, give him Barnett. Like, dude, we cannot have Alex Pereira fighting anyone other than Magomed. It's not a good look. Pereira needs to fight this guy. Do I think he'll win? No. But until he beats Magomed, he has not cleared out this division. And I think Magomed can do well. I'm going to be training with him in the build-up to the Pereira fight. I am going to be helping him out. We are going to be wrestling heavy. I don't mean to give away the game plan, but, you know, Pereira's a dangerous guy. We, of course, are going to be wrestling heavy going into that. I've taken Magomed down a couple times. You know, I mean, he's a good wrestler. He's not the best necessarily. I'm just messing around with Magomed. But listen, I thought this was a good fight. I thought it was a pretty good fight, okay? Rakic definitely didn't look anywhere near as good as he did against Yuri. Against Yuri, he looked like a world champ. First round, at least. Not against Magomed, though. Magomed has a knack of slowing fights down. Ank does a really good job of slowing fights down. And it's time to give him a fucking title shot, man. It's time to give him a title shot. If you're afraid of that, if you're hating on that, if you're saying, no, who else? Yuri Part 2? Aspinall, I understand. That'd be a great fight. I think that'd be even better. I think there's a greater case for that, but come on. If you really think anyone else deserves a title fight in the light heavyweight division over Magomed Ankalaev, you're just scared that Magomed's going to beat Alex Pereira. Because you know he's deserving. You know he's earned it. And I'll be rooting for Magomed, man. You know, I mean, I'll be rooting for him. I think Pereira beats him, though. I think Pereira will beat him. I think that his power is on a different level. His confidence is on a different level. Pereira is no longer fighting even as reserved as he did back in the day. I know it sounds crazy to say he was somewhat reserved back in the day, but he was much more patient. Now Pereira hunts people down and goes after them. I think Pereira's going to knock Magomed out. So let's get on to the next one. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Dan Ige knocking Lerone Murphy down in the first round, but then slowing down. Sort of gassing out a little bit. Lerone Murphy comes on strong in the second. Third round was just a really good grappling exchange between these guys, but Lerone Murphy in the third round was outstriking Dan Ige. They had their grappling exchange. It was really good. Lots of good scrambles. And then at the end of the round, Lerone Murphy was teeing off on Dan Ige in close quarters up against the fence. Ige was getting rocked a little bit here and there. This, some people are saying, is a robbery. I disagree with that. I thought this was 100% clear. Lerone Murphy won. I did pick Lerone Murphy to get this one done. I was tempted to pick Ige because of the power. We obviously saw that early on in this fight, but as this fight progressed and Lerone Murphy was able to keep it at a good distance, he was clearly the better striker at range, and his grappling looked pretty good as well. Ige's grappling seems to be improving, but that third round was clear, cut, and dry. Yeah, the grappling was close, but Lerone Murphy was the only one that really did anything on the feet, so he won this fight. Great win for Lerone Murphy. Featherweight is getting even more stacked, but you know what's funny? Again, Lerone Murphy's a good featherweight. Diego Lopez is a good featherweight. We've got a bunch of good featherweights. None of these guys are matches for Ilia Topuria. No featherweight fight right now really excites me that much. Like, I do want to see Ilia fight and defend his belt, and I still think he needs to do more because you can't be the GOAT with just 2 wins. I do think he's top 10 all time, and that's just, you know, he's undefeated, top 10 all time, 100% off of those 2 wins, but that's not enough to be top 5. But still, can't be that hyped for you know, Aljo Topuria fight, something like that. Let's get on to the next one. Shara Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. Really amazing fight. This was a great test. Armen Petrosyan, in my opinion, was actually winning this fight slightly. And I said going into this, I don't know, man. Shara's pretty good, but he just doesn't have any pop. You know, I think he's going to win just by a hair, just by a couple extra strikes, a couple extra taps. And then in the second round, 5 seconds before the round ends, Shara Magomedov throws a spinning back fist and immediately spins to his other elbow and lands another spinning elbow. So it was like a spinning back fist. I forget which hand it was with. Throws a spinning back fist, lands it partially, spins immediately again, lands the other elbow, sends Armen Petrosyan flying. There was a second where I thought, oh, Shara's walking off, and they might not stop it. That might be like the biggest buzzkill ever, but the ref gets in there. He stops the fight. Armen Petrosyan definitely looked like he was out of it. This is the KO of the year. This is 100% the KO of the year. We've seen some crazy KOs. Ferreira, Jamal Hill, Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje. I mean, Topuria Volk, Topuria Max. Oh, my goodness. I can't... Dude, this guy KO'd Volk and Max. How's that even possible? I think he might be the fighter of the year over Ferreira, bro. Pereira's done some crazy things. He's had 3 big fights. He's got more aura. Pereira's KOs are, you know, a little bit more viral in some way, but Max and Volk versus Yuri and Jamal Hill, they're not even fucking close. Either way, there have been some great KOs. I don't actually know if this is the KO of the year as far as just how grand it is and how big of a moment it was in, but as far as just a flashy KO, I honestly think this is the KO of the year. This is like the Buckley spinning wheel kick type of KO of the year, right? There was the Buckley KO. Then the next year, there was the Ignacio Bahamondes KO, spinning kick. This is like the flashy KO of the year. That doesn't necessarily make it knockout of the year in general, but I think flashy KO, this one definitely takes the cake. Spinning back fist into a spinning elbow, sending Armen Petrosyan flying across the octagon. Amazing win from Shara Magomedov. Kind of needed that. Kind of needed this finish because people, again, including myself, were saying that he had some, you know, minor case of the pillow hands. Now he's actually getting finishes. Armen Petrosyan is by far the best striker he's fought in the UFC. It was a big step up in competition. The creativity was what won in this fight. Just different level of creativity. He's like a middleweight version of Zabit, with extra pop now, all right? But what a win from Shara Magomedov. Let's get on to the next one. I thought this was weird that they made this the fight right before the main card. This was like the weirdest fight to put there, but hey, this was quick. Ibo Aslan put us out of a potential misery of seeing, you know, 2 nobodies have a boring fight. No disrespect, but Ibo Aslan's not a nobody after this one. I know he had other fights in the UFC. Easily KOs Rafael Cerqueira. I picked him to win this fight because Ibo Aslan, in my opinion, was just a little bit more proven in the UFC. This guy is a newbie in the UFC. Really good win. Wasn't really much of a fight. It was just Ibo Aslan blowing Rafael out of the water and just destroying him. Rafael, I don't even think he landed one shot. And Aslan just TKO'd him up against the fence. Standing TKO. Mark Goddard was the guy refereeing. You know, Mark Goddard's not a stranger to standing TKOs. I honestly thought this could have went on a little bit longer, but Ibo Aslan was not going to be denied of a KO anyway. If it went on longer, he probably would have got it, but really good win for Ibo Aslan. Amazing win. Geoff Neal, Rafael Dos Anjos, man, you know, I just think it's really unfortunate that RDA was kind of screwed out of this, you know, because he was looking really good early. And I just wanted to see RDA take this into the third, fourth round. Maybe he could have made something happen. Let's be honest. From the moment this fight started, yes, RDA hurt his knee, but this is one of those performances where Geoff Neal just looks like he's fighting someone that's never trained a day in their life. This was basically what it looks like to see a trained fighter fight someone that's never thrown a punch. It was like every now and then Geoff Neal has these performances where he's like actually letting his hands go and he looks like no one could ever beat him in the history of human earth. You know what I mean? Geoff Neal made, and obviously it depends on the opponent, but Geoff Neal had one of his no one could ever beat this guy type of performances tonight. And you never know what you're going to get at a Geoff Neal. Sometimes it's the half asleep, clinching up against the fence, you know, throws one southpaw combo, and that's it for the round. And then sometimes he goes out there, fastest, you know, straight left hand you've ever seen, head kick KO over Mike Perry, nasty KO over Vicente Luque. No one's going to stop this guy. And he had one of those performances against RDA. RDA, old man, not a lot of power anymore. And Geoff Neal dropped him multiple times and just fucking, you know, had RDA flying across the octagon. What can we say? This was a classic Geoff Neal easy KO. You know, I think he was due for this. Every now and then you get a couple boring Geoff Neal performances. We had the Shavkat fight. That was amazing. And we had a boring one with Ian Gary. You have a couple boring ones, you know you're in for a good KO in the next one. But if Geoff Neal is looking like this against RDA and he looks like this every now and then, what does that say about Shavkat? For Shavkat to go in there and eat everything Geoff Neal has to land on him for breakfast and not be phased at all, that's a different level of toughness. Shavkat's like the real Orolbai. You know, Orolbai, we'll talk about that. Orolbai got made to look human. Dude, Orolbai's a fucking beast, bro. You get what I'm saying, though. Like, Orolbai, he had this mystique about him where no one could ever hurt him, ever. He could fall off of Mount Everest and get right up and scratch his back and he'd be fine. Maybe Shavkat is that guy. But, yeah, amazing performance from Geoff Neal. Classic. You know, Geoff Neal just blowing someone out of the water real quick. Mateusz Rebecki, Myktybek, Orolbai. Myktybek, Orolbai versus Mateusz Rebecki. This was a dogfight. This reminded me of Yuri Prohaska versus Glover Teixeira, where we're in the third round. Maybe this was the case in like the fourth round of Glover and Yuri, and you're just, I mean, you're kind of in disbelief at how both of these guys are even alive at this point. Like, this was like a real, you know, death match. Like, this was one of those fights where it gets fucking intense just because of the amount of damage, how much these guys are leaving it all on the line. This was one of those fights where you hope that the UFC goes behind the scenes and gives both of these guys like $500,000, you know, for this type of performance, or $1 million. I know that might sound crazy, but really, like, the UFC should take care of these guys. Myktybek, Orolbai. First off, you know, Mateusz Rebecki, he went out there trying to take Myktybek Orolbai's head off. And Mateusz Rebecki doesn't have the craziest power in the world, but he's one of those short guys. He's like a slightly more powerful Volkanovski. And what I mean by that is Mateusz is not like a Ilia Topuria, right? He's not got this like freaky power where it's almost kind of strange at how, you know, Ilia even has that type of power, right? Can't really wrap your head around it. It's like Poaton's left hook. Because Mateusz Rebecki looks like a guy that hits like Ilia Topuria. And Ilia Topuria is not like a skinny guy or whatever, but some guys look like they would hit harder. Chandler, Mateusz Rebecki. He doesn't have Chandler power, but he's got good power. He's got good power. Not the craziest, but he was really throwing his all into these punches. Right? And Mytek Orolbai gets his orbital bone broken. First round, his eye starts swelling up like crazy. And I was worried that they were going to stop it. But then in the second round, Mytek Orolbai starts marching down Mateusz Rebecki. It starts putting that pressure on him. It starts getting to him a little bit. He's shooting takedowns. He's mixing it up real well. And, you know, Mateusz Rebecki is still landing these bombs, but he's starting to slow down. And Mytek Orolbai is just trying to get him out of there with a right hand. There's this sense of urgency that he has because he had his orbital bone broken. And then in the third round, Mateusz Rebecki drops Mytek Orolbai and has him on skates. You know, Mytek Orolbai, again, toughest human to ever exist, arguably. We were talking about this. He's like one of these guys, like, you know, he falls off of a mountain, gets right back up. He's just literally got the built different type of genetics. And the ref doesn't step in. Mark Goddard, thank goodness he wasn't in there. Because it honestly was like the latest. There wasn't even a stoppage, but I was really getting worried. I'm like, what is it going to take for the ref to have to step in? Like, this is getting pretty horrible. But Mytek Orolbai survives. He survives. And this guy's been attacked by mammoths. He's been attacked by saber-toothed tigers. He's been attacked by bears. He's been attacked by many different generations of dangerous threats. And now Mateusz Rebecki just can't get him out of there. Mytek Orolbai's experience showing. And towards the end of the round, Mytek Orolbai starts beating up Mateusz Rebecki. And they're in this like grappling exchange where both guys are landing like short elbows and short ground and pound strikes. And there's blood all over the place. And Mateusz Rebecki's cut open because there was a headbutt. And there was just so much damage, so much blood. Both of these guys looked exhausted. I just felt bad for them right after. Like, now they're going to be hurting for the next couple of days. But this was really one of the best fights of the year. One of the best fights I've ever seen. Mytek Orolbai, just so unbelievably tough. I was a little bit worried that they were going to give it to Mytek because it was clear that, you know, there were some weird things going on with the judges early on in the night. But they gave Rebecki the win. He won the first round. He definitely won the third because he dropped Mytek. I'm surprised that he dropped Mytek. Really good fight. But this is a lot of damage for Mateusz Rebecki to take. I keep pronouncing his name wrong. Mateusz Rebecki. It's a lot of damage for him to take 2 fights in a row. And he's not exactly that young. I think they should give him a ranked opponent. You know, there's another guy that called for a ranked opponent that I think, honestly, is a little bit pathetic, but he deserves a ranked opponent. Mytek Orolbai, in my opinion, he was the best prospect in the UFC this year. It's just, you know, Mateusz Rebecki is a fucking monster. So it was a big step up for him as well. But yeah, both of these guys are legends for this fight. I hope that the UFC gives them like a huge bonus. Huge bonus for both of these guys. Let's get on to the next one. Abus Magomedov, Bruno Ferreira. Typical Abus Magomedov fight. Does really well in the first round. It looked like Bruno Ferreira was, you know, he had a good plan. He was waiting for Abus to sort of gas himself out. Second round, Abus starts gassing himself out. Bruno Ferreira starts coming on strong. Hurts Abus Magomedov badly. I think he dropped him at one point in the second round as well. And then in the third round, Bruno Ferreira gets caught in a submission. Abus takes him down, works his way into half guard, gets him out of there with a head and arm triangle. Really good win for Abus Magomedov. As always, his gas tank is pretty terrible, but hey, he won the first round, got the submission in the third, did what he needed to do. I'm happy to see him get this win. I like seeing Abus win because he did get, you know, really embarrassed by Sean Strickland in that fight that they had where, you know, Abus was going after Strickland and then just totally folded. And then he goes up against Cal Baraujo. It's good to see him in the win column, right? I believe this is the second win Abus has in a row. I picked Bruno Ferreira to get this one done by KO. Damn near got it, but I'm happy that Abus won. Good fight. Now, this one was really sad. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Barnett. I believe I made my prediction when this was Nzechukwu versus Justin Tafa. Barnett filled in. And this was just, you know, classic light heavyweight skill versus, you know, average Joe heavyweights. It honestly looked like a bloat-maxed version of me. I used to talk about I could bloat-max my way to the UFC. If I got into the heavyweight division in the UFC, I'd look like Chris Barnett. All right? I'd look like Chris Barnett. I'm like the same height as him. I would have to be super fat. And, you know, listen, he's got that lighter man speed, but Kennedy Nzechukwu is like one of the leaner heavyweights. And this was the right move for him because, man, he looked really good in this fight. Again, heavyweight, I mean, versus a former light heavyweight. That skill gap exists. That's clear as ever. And it honestly looked like Kennedy Nzechukwu could fight Ciryl Gane tomorrow. I'd love to see that fight. I think we give Gane a lot of credit, and Gane is very good, but, you know, I feel like some of these light heavyweights would give him good fights. But very sad to see Chris Barnett go out like that. He just got toasted against the fence. The teeps to the midsection, and Kennedy Nzechukwu was like a cat playing with a mouse at the end of that, and it really was sad to watch Chris Barnett get easily dismantled, easily KO'd. Light heavyweight skill versus heavyweight skill on full display. And Chris Barnett has had a rough past couple of years, which was really sad to see Chris Barnett. You know, I feel for the guy. That's very unfortunate. But, yeah, great win for Kennedy Nzechukwu. Very sad for Chris Barnett. Just totally unfair as far as matchups go. But, you know, you're in the heavyweight division. This is the thing. This is why I always say, if you're in the heavyweight division, get in shape. Look at the top heavyweights. You know, there's no top heavyweight that's super out of shape and super fat. That just doesn't exist. Gane, Tom Aspinall, Volkov, Pavlovich. None of these guys are, you know, 6% body fat, but they're all lean. And you have a guy in there like Justin Tafa or Chris Barnett, they're always going to lose to a Kennedy Nzechukwu just because of the speed difference. Farid Basharat, he needs a ranking spot. He needs a ranking spot. I fear no man. I fear no man. I need my ranking spot tomorrow for having a shitty decision against Victor Hugo. Get out of here, son. This guy has a freaking pitter-pat decision with Victor Hugo, and he's getting on the mic talking like he's Khamzat Chimaev after beating Li Jingliang. Talking like he's Khamzat after beating Gerald Meerschaert. Ranking spot for a pitter-pat snooze fest decision against Victor Hugo? Fair enough, I picked Victor Hugo, but man, ranking spot? This is what? The bantamweight division, featherweight division? I actually believe this is bantamweight. I think it's wrong. Pretty sure this is bantamweight. Dude, we've got O'Malley, we've got Merab, we've got Peter Yan, Davidson Figueiredo. I don't think Farid Basharat fits in that mix. Okay? I don't think so. I think you're going to have to slow down a little bit. Like, listen. Like, the things that people are saying about Magomed Ankalaev is what people should be saying about Farid. Ranking spot after beating Victor Hugo like this? Stop, man. The Farid Basharat, Javid Basharat, it is unfortunate because these guys do have some skills, like they're well-rounded, but they're just not dangerous. That's the issue. Mid-fight, I'm actually thinking about, you know what, I feel like I could beat this guy. I feel like I could beat this guy. I couldn't, because then I realized, wait a second, just because he's, you know, looking like a pitter-pat guy in front of Victor Hugo against you, he'd be able to throw a couple leg kicks, he'd be able to throw a couple teeps, he'd be able to mix it up and make you uncomfortable, and all of a sudden you'd be like, fuck, dude, I'm not good enough to beat this guy. So I feel like Farid would get me out of there. But against UFC fighters, he's not a dangerous man. He's got no sting on his shots. He's got zero power in his squeeze, like Khamzat Chimaev. You know, Khamzat Chimaev's got that freaking built different type of strength. DC was talking about it. He's not that big, but once he gets a hold of you, it's kind of scary how strong he is. Farid Basharat's the opposite. Once he gets a hold of you, honestly, it feels like a leaf fell on you. It's unbelievable, bro. Farid Basharat, these guys don't impose their will. They don't hit hard. And I think that keep doing your thing. Like, I hope he gets ranked, man. I honestly hope he becomes champ. Screw it. The way that this guy was talking, it honestly seemed like we were about to get a Farid Basharat versus Ilia Topuria title fight. If you had just walked in and you didn't even watch the fight, and you would only watch the main event, and you would watch the interview that Farid had, you would think like, oh, I guess this guy's getting a title fight next. This is going to be pretty good, Farid versus Ilia. But then, you obviously watching his fight, you wouldn't think that. But, man, unbelievable. Calling for a ranked opponent. That's great. Like, you know, people say this about Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed beats Rakic, and they're landing big, powerful strikes. And it's like people are saying, Give Magomed Matt Schnell or some shit like that. That's how I feel with the Basharat guys, okay? Ismail Nardayev versus Bruno Silva. This was a easy fight for Ismail Nardayev. I think I may have picked Bruno Silva to win this, but listen, it was pretty clear that he was checked out. Bruno Silva just wasn't himself. It seems like this is truly a washed-up Bruno Silva. Wasn't imposing his will whatsoever, wasn't making this a gritty scrap. That's kind of what I would have expected out of him. Ismail Nardayev looked to be the hungry guy. Bruno Silva looked to be the guy that was just showing up for the paycheck, and I think he's not the same guy as he used to be. This is not the guy that stood toe-to-toe with Alex Pereira and traded bombs with him. Totally different guy. But good win for Ismail Nardayev. It's been a minute since this guy's fought in the UFC. He looked good in this fight. Bruno Silva, I don't know. I feel like this is the type of fight you make instead of Vicente Luque versus Nick Diaz. I know Luque is a bigger name, but let's be honest. Is Luque really a draw, though? Is Luque really a draw? I think we should do Bruno Silva versus Nick Diaz. I think that'd be a little bit more fair. Rinat Fakhretoinov versus Carlos Leal. Robbery. Even though Carlos Leal is clearly on sauce, I mean, this guy was shocking me during this fight at how easily he was. Rinat is a big welterweight. Rinat is the welterweight that makes other welterweights look small. Rinat is a huge welterweight, and Carlos Leal was making him look puny when he was shucking him off and tripping him. He was doing like the trips like Peter Yan did to Aljo in their first fight, just shucking him off, tripping him around the octagon. Rinat must have shot like 25 takedowns. Rinat is kind of built different in his own way. He's shooting 25 times. He's throwing bombs, and Carlos Leal is just no effort. I mean, he was putting up effort, but the way it looked, it was like this guy wasn't even trying, and he was just cruising to victory based off being the most sauced-up fighter to ever exist. There were freaking volcanoes on this guy's back. About 30 of them. Okay? Way too easy shucking off those takedown attempts and just not getting tired at all. And I fear that we are going to see a very diminished version of this guy in his next few fights. That's the unfortunate part. We're going to get to the decision. First off, amazing fight. Really good fight. It kind of got overshadowed a little bit by the Rebecki versus Myktybek Orolbai fight, but this was going up into that fight, the best one of the night. This was one of the best fights I've seen in the welterweight division this year. Great matchup. Both of these guys fought hard. I gave Rinat the second round, or maybe the first round. I kind of forget. Was it the first or the second? But either way, Carlos Leal clearly won 2 out of the 3 rounds here. I think he won the first, and I think he won the third. Clear as ever. Okay? I mean, he was shucking Rinat all over the place and stuffing takedowns like they were nothing. And at the end of the fight, last couple of minutes, he was dominating Rinat Fakhretoinov. Like, it wasn't even close. He had hit the groove. Rinat doing his best to hang in there. I mean, Rinat literally was getting smaller as the fight progressed. And Carlos Leal was turning into a heavy-hitting Merab Dvalishvili. That's literally what this looked like. Crazy pace, crazy power, explosivity, off the charts. Listen, sauce or not, because it's pretty clear. This guy got signed this week, taking it on short notice. Has nothing to... I mean, listen, guys, this dude's got to be on some shit. And if he's not, then this guy's built different. He's probably going to be a champ. But yeah, Carlos Leal got robbed. He should have won this fight. This was unbelievable. And you know it's bad when the when the commentators are angry about it. Paul Felder, DC, they were saying this is ridiculous. What is going on here? Carlos Leal deserved that win. He deserved it. He earned it. Okay? I mean, really, he should have won that shit. Rinat Fakhretoinov, credit to him for staying in the fight and throwing hard till the end, but Carlos Leal started making him look a little bit silly. Those calf kicks were nasty, but then the boxing combinations and just pushed him around, even took him down in the third round to prove a point. Really good fight. But I fear that Carlos Leal's performances are going to fall off a little bit. We've seen it with other fighters. We've seen Shamil Gaziev before the UFC. You look at photos of Shamil Gaziev, he's actually kind of jacked. Now you look at Shamil Gaziev, he's not the same guy. right? There are other fighters where that's the case as well. Other fighters have looked like huge before they get to the UFC. They're shredded to the bone. They have 3D delts, and then they have a couple fights in the UFC and they look totally different. Keep an eye on Carlos Leal. That same shift may happen, and I don't know how good he's going to be in the future, but I mean, this was an amazing performance. This guy has a lot of experience. Listen, it's not just because of that. I'm sure he's just a great fighter in general, but my point is, I don't know if I can expect this every single time. But if he goes out there and does this in his next fight, that'll be pretty unbelievable. Either way, he won this fight. And if you beat Rinat Fakhretoinov, I think he's not lost in the UFC, but I'm counting this as a loss. Okay? And even though he doesn't have a real loss technically on paper, he's had a draw before, but never really lost until now. But on paper, that's not the case. Rinat might be getting a ranked opponent. Carlos Leal should be getting a fucking ranked opponent next. You know? I want to see Carlos Leal versus Joaquin Buckley now. I want to see Carlos Leal versus Jack Della Maddalena. This guy is chin as well. Unbelievable. Because I was saying this to myself during this fight. I was like, man, there's just no way, even if he's on sauce, he's, going to have a buffed up chin, and there's no way he's just incapable of being KO'd. He can get KO'd. Anyone can get knocked out. This guy had a granite chin too. Seemed to be getting better as the fight went on. Rinat Fakhretoinov was landing bombs on him and just no reaction, nothing. It's like Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria gets hit with the kitchen sink and he's just chilling. Carlos Leal is definitely a fighter to look out for. He definitely seems to be a more entertaining fighter, very experienced in the cage, and again, defending 25 takedowns, short notice, not gassing out, not even for a second, and beating Rinat Fakhretoinov in the fight till the very end. Didn't really slow down that much. Amazing win from Carlos Leal. So how many did I get right? I got that wrong. I got this wrong. I got that wrong. I'll take the Kennedy Nzechukwu win. I know he didn't fight Justin Tafa, but I'll take it. I still would have picked him. So I'm going to say one right. I get this wrong. Wow. Ilia Topuria gets it done against Max Holloway. He's a top 10 fighter of all time. I really do think that the fans should get behind an Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev fight because, listen, even though Volk deserves a title fight, because let's be honest, he's only lost once in the featherweight division. I know people like to say things like he's lost 100 times in a row, he doesn't deserve it. That was his first ever loss at featherweight, and it was in a title fight. Before that, undefeated at featherweight. I get it on merit, he deserves it, and I get it, Arman Tsarukyan deserves a title fight, and I still want to see those. But this is one of those fights between two GOATs that we just can't pass up on. And I know that a lot of people are going to be denying that it's a GOAT versus GOAT matchup, but it is really one of those few, whoever wins this might be the GOAT of the sport type of matchups. When Volk fought Islam, Volk was the only one in that matchup that was kind of close. And if he had beaten Islam Makhachev, maybe he could have achieved somewhere close to GOAT status. But now that Ilia beat Volk and he KO'd Max, he's getting up there. And Islam Makhachev, after those Volk wins, has beat Dustin. He's beat Volk twice now. It's like these guys are putting together some crazy quality wins. Ilia versus Islam Makhachev could decide who is the GOAT of the sport. Ilia wins against Islam Makhachev and wins one more fight. Let's say he goes up and he beats Islam and then defends his belt. That's different than going up and defending your belt in an upper weight class. That's featherweight and lightweight, two of the hardest divisions ever. And if Islam Makhachev beats this guy, and I know people are going to say, Islam can't keep fighting these small guys. Dude, these are featherweight skilled monsters. Max Holloway goes up there and makes Justin Gaethje look like a fool. Lightweights aren't doing that. Lightweights aren't doing that. Volkanovski, featherweight GOAT. Okay, beat Max 3 times, dude. Come on, bro. All right? What are we even saying? Ilia Topuria is... Don't even fucking try to diminish the threat of Ilia Topuria because he's a featherweight. That should make him more dangerous. This guy's knocking out Max Holloway, Volkanovski, right? 50-42ing Josh Emmett. And you guys are talking about, no, I'd rather see a Dan Hooker matchup. Get out of here, man. No, man. Let's see Bilal, bro. Like, dude, I like Bilal, but come on. Like, this is the fight to make. This is the fight to make. Ilia versus Islam Makhachev. Like, it's too good to pass up on. The build-up to that fight would be unbelievable. Ilia's like the most cocky dude ever, and he's backing it up every single time, and he's terrifying. He's terrifying. And Islam Makhachev, yeah, he's always smirking in front of his opponents. But this time, I don't know if his smirk is going to be as smirky. I don't think it is. Because this time, he's going in there with a guy that he knows can put his lights out. Dustin Poirier is not a, next-level power puncher. Ilia is. There have been some great power punchers in the UFC, Yoel Romero, but Ilia Topuria, man, we think of guys like Yoel Chandler, super powerful. Ilia's got that different type of power where he's really putting people to sleep. Because it's power and it's the technique combined, and that's the craziest power. This is a guy that can KO anyone at 45, at lightweight. Anyone. If he's landing a good shot on you. And he could be losing the fight. Islam could be up 3-0. Ilia just doesn't wear damage that much. He could be up 3-0 and get KO'd. That's why it's such a good fight. And he's got that short, stocky build where it can be difficult to hold him down. That's the fight to make. There's not a fight that's better than that. Not a single one. Not a single one. And Volkanovski is getting in the cage. Dude, that's just... Listen, I love Volk. Volkanovski's my favorite fighter. But come on, man. Like, what are we doing? We're going to go back in time. Yeah, I want to see Ilia knock Volk out again. Dude, come on. Like, we can make that fight if Ilia loses to Islam. That's the type of fighter, right? Ilia move up, and if you lose, then we can go back and fight Volk. But we're going to miss out on this opportunity, and that's going to be the worst thing ever. For what? For a second KO over Volk? And I'm not just saying this to say Volkanovski. Volk's going to get KO'd no matter what against Ilia Topuria. I don't want to see that fight, period. But I want to see Ilia and Islam fight because they are the two best fighters in the UFC right now. Yes, Alex Pereira's out there and Tom Aspinall's out there, and I think it's just kind of a different discussion. Heavier weight classes, lightweight classes. Like Alex and these guys are never going to compete. Pereira, that is. So right now we're just talking about lightweight classes because, of course, Pereira in his own right is unbelievable. It's hard to compare heavier weight class guys to lightweight class guys, but in general, Ilia Topuria beating Max Holloway, like you guys really need to let that sink in how impressive that is by KO. And Volkanovski. And again, I think that this kind of proves that Volk KO wasn't just because Volk was compromised. It's because Ilia Topuria has got a different dynamite in his hands that we've never seen before in the lightweight class ever. The lighter weight classes. We've never seen this type of power. Well, man, what about Conor, mate? I've seen Conor throw back. I'm like, stop! But what about McGuiggy? Fuck off! McGuiggy. Stop, man! Enough! McGuiggy. Okay? I just think McGuigan could go in there and sort of snipe him off. Stop, bro. Featherweight Conor McGregor would get fucking slung across the octagon. Max Holloway's not one of the best featherweights, man. Dude, I can hear people diminishing this. It's insane. It's insane. It sucks because he's beating my favorite fighters. And in a way, I kind of want Islam to beat Ilia. So I could say that, well, Volk couldn't have beaten Islam anyway. No, because Ilia beating Volk is not necessarily... Ilia beating Max, it would have been better for Max to beat Ilia for Volk's legacy. Because then I could have said, well, hey, Max beat Ilia. No one could beat Max instead of Volk. But now it's like, yeah, well, Ilia's always been better than these guys. And it's kind of the case. We need to see Ilia Topuria versus Islam. Because if Islam beats Ilia Topuria, he's got Volk, he's got Charles, he's got Dustin. He's going to have Armen probably. It's like the quality on that guy's resume would be insane. And if Ilia beats Islam Makhachev, Max, Volk, Islam, get out of here. 3 top 10 fighters of all time, all in their prime. He's the GOAT of the sport. He's the GOAT of the sport if he does that. Nah, man, you don't understand. John Jones beat the dinosaur. Stop. No, GSP beat Carlos Condit. What about Mighty Mouth, man? Stop. The new GOATs have arrived. We'll see what John Jones does to Stipe. Stipe Miocic. We'll see what Jones does to Stipe. Because if Jones does beat Stipe, Jones is already ahead. Whereas, like, if he beats Stipe, Ilia beating Islam, I think that'd put him at, like, number 2. And then one more, he's the GOAT of the sport. But I think it'd put him head and head. One win over Islam is like 3 Stipe wins. Okay? One win over Max Holloway is like 10 Carlos Condit wins. All right. And then one win over Volk for Islam and Ilia is like 50 1 FC Ray Borg type of wins, even though Ray Borg was in the UFC. You get what I'm saying for those GOATs. Like Mighty Mouse, GSP Jones, Ilia Topuria. I mean, this guy's what, 28 years old? It's only a matter of time. Unless he gets KO'd by Islam and that changes the trajectory of his career. But that's the fight to make. There's no other fight to make. It's too big to pass up on. I know Islam Makhachev's fought 1 featherweight champ and Ilia just has defended his belt for the first time. And I know there's going to be some salty fans that are going to say things like, hey, man, earn your keep. Defend your belt 5 more times. Go out there and defend against Josh Emmett and Lerone Murphy. But what they don't understand is if that happens, we'll never see this fight. And then the Ilia Topuria double champ fight is going to be against, like, some guy that couldn't have been champion on Islam Makhachev's watch. Some guy that couldn't have been champ when Islam Makhachev was reigning. You know, it's going to be like Ilia versus Charles after Charles has gone, 3 for 6 out of his last 6 fights. Or it's going to be Ilia versus short notice. It's going to be Ilia versus a short notice fill-in Ally Aquinta. That's going to be it. Like, we can't do that, man. We can't. Let's postpone Arman Tsarukyan and Makhachev. Let's postpone Ilia Topuria Volk. Let's tell Volk and Arman, hey guys, we'll give you front row tickets. Volkanovski, you can fight for the featherweight belt. If Ilia beats Islam, if he vacates, you can fight for the featherweight belt against whoever's going to fight. Or you can do the interim. And Arman, you can fight the winner of this at lightweight. It's such a good fight. You can't pass up on it, man. You just can't. Anyway, guys, that is it for the breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A little bit upset that Holloway lost. I mean, it's just depressing seeing a guy like Holloway that's never been KO'd get knocked out like that. Good win for Ank. My boy, I'm going to congratulate him soon. And I look forward to discussing why we need Ilia versus Makhachev more in the future. Until next time.